I was going to quickly share a story that for me really brought adaptive spaces, that framework of Mary's alive. And it's a Kew community related example, the first national NHS time bank called HexiTime that maybe a number of you will have heard of, I think. And following that kind of adaptive path, I think has led to great success because it recently passed 1,000 members. And the start of HexiTime, it was hatched, you know, as the Mary's framework would say, it was hatched in a very small kind of insular but high trust innovation pocket by John Lodge at NHS England and Improvement around 2015. And at this time, it was, you know, it was quite away from being a time bank. It was a kind of hazy idea for a skills exchange, but, you know, good idea, but quite hazy. There were opportunities for pitching to senior leaders that came at the beginning and came later on. But as Mary's framework warns is usually the case, John was unsuccessful with a kind of direct appeal to the leaders of the operational system. So, and then when they began to go down a more adaptive route, I suppose, fortuitously, the first adaptive space opportunity that John had with this idea was actually an open space session at a Kew national event. So that began to see it open up beyond that insular pocket that it had begun in, and it found some new allies, which included me, and then there was a second, I suppose, temporary adaptive space where I played a bit of a broker role, brought some different groups together, sort of bridged them together, and convened this meeting between John at NHS England with a Kew member who was inquisitive, or him and a friend were kind of inquisitive about time banks, but not doing anything with them, somebody called Hisham Abdullah, and another Kew who'd actually run a time bank in Rushy Green in London. So ostensibly this meeting was to hear this case study. But, you know, I kind of knew that if you bring all those people together, maybe something rather more could happen. And the result of that second sort of adaptive space, as it were, was new allies, and the skills share idea was challenged basically, and was improved by that meeting, you know, that it began to move towards being a time bank. So basically this kind of vague skills bank idea became this funky time bank platform when they heard from Kew members in another part of the country. There was a core team. By the end of that meeting, there was actually a core team in place, which there hadn't been before, and a plan that rather than pitching to the upper sort of echelons of the operational system, they were going to instead seek to appeal across the Kew network by applying to Kew Exchange, which is, you know, voted on by the members and so on. And an additional benefit of these adaptive spaces was that when John and Hesham came together, they had totally different but complementary skills. So that was another sort of plus point that wasn't there at the beginning when it was a much more niche kind of idea. And the final thing I was going to say was just, you know, the kind of network spread, because as Mary's framework predicts, you know, if you've got an improved idea, it's got lots of allies, it can begin to spread through the network and be socialized, which is what happened. And it actually became the runaway winner of the Kew Exchange in 2018. So it got the funding from that. And this is a kind of momentum across the network that gets called network closure, which is basically where a more developed idea combined with the allies develops a network buzz that just becomes kind of unstoppable. So kind of closure happens, and you know, operational leaders are suddenly open to this idea because it's a better idea. It's got lots of allies and prototypes and so on. So yeah, I just wanted to share that HexiTime because it really brought it alive for me. And I thought it didn't do everything that Mary says, but it did an awful lot of what she says she found in her 10-year study of how successful changes happen in hospitals and elsewhere.